Hello, chart watchers and DecisionPoint faithful. Carl and I would like to welcome you to this Monday, December 16th, 2019 DecisionPoint show. And for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome to the DecisionPoint show. We hope to have you back every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And of course, for those DecisionPoint faithful out there, we do welcome you back. So let's go ahead and I don't know, Dad, I have to say it's been interesting. I did have a reader, send me an email because I always say in my diamonds report that I'm 80% cash, at least right now. And the email was, well, I mean, what is it? Don't you have a problem with the fact that the market has been rising and you've been 80% cash? I was thinking maybe I should just reply to the email. No, I absolutely love it when that happens. But yes, but my answer was basically that yeah, it's no fun, to sit on the sidelines, but at the same time, I don't have much worries going on over the holidays, and I always know that there will be a setup in the future. There just always is going to be a setup, and I just like to exercise patience.
Well, Bank of America said today that we should prepare for a melt up.
A melt up.
Yeah, melt up. Yeah. So I'm going to address that when I get to the covering the S&P.
All right. Well, speaking of what we're going to cover here, we'll start with the DecisionPoint scoreboards, which you can find on your StockCharts member board there, your homepage. And we'll look at the SPY. Carl will talk about the SPY and the DP indicators and what they look like to him. Sector scoreboard, we'll go over what our signals are for all of the sectors. And then Carl and I are going to drill down into a few of the select sectors that we're finding interesting right now. And then at the end, we of course have Carl's grab bag, where he has some charts that you might find of interest that are interesting him right now. So let's go ahead and I'll get started here with the DecisionPoint scoreboard review. And as you can see, nothing has changed since last week. We are on short-term PMO sell signals still on those daily charts. And I suspect with the PMO turning up, we should start seeing those turn green very soon if we continue to see, or if we see a melt up, as we were just talking about. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to move us right on in. Carl, go ahead and take the screen and go ahead and show us what you're seeing right now as far as the S&P.
All right. Obviously, we're continuing higher. I'll address what's going on in here in the chart just a little bit. We're getting a confirmation on the OBV, which is telling us that the move is backed by volume moving into the market. We've got good volume, just a little bit more than the average daily for the 1 year. 1 year. Let's go on to the.
I do notice we did get a PMO buy signal today on the SPY.
Right, for the SPY. And it's been moving sideways pretty much here at night. And it's not really that overbought yet.
Mm-mm.
No, I think I'll move right along past that. The weekly chart, PMO is rising. It's overbought, but it's still hasn't reached the top of the range shown on this chart. That's a bullish looking chart. The monthly, that PMO is rising, and again, that's a bullish chart.
Mm-hmm.
The gold cross and silver cross indexes. This is a problem. We've got a series of lower tops, although this top here exceeds the one prior to it. So that is an encouraging positive move. But and then the Golden Cross Index is that's 78%, 79% Golden Cross signals for the S&P 500 stocks. Again, I'd say other than the declining tops here, this is a very bullish chart, and the reading on the Silver Cross 72 is just fine. It's not as good as some of these over here. Okay, we had on Thursday we had a nice up move on the gee, what was that? That was the trade announcement.
Yes, the China trade agreement.
And we noticed we had, it was a climax day. We had a nice spike in new highs, and the net advanced declines was at a climax level. Volume was a little skimpy in terms of net advanced decline volume, but it was still very good. And of course, we got the nice spike in total volume for S&P 500. Now, we're gonna you see I've asterisked 3 of these volume bars. That's the quadruple witching option expiration, and we're going to have one of those at the end of this week. That is an important volume spike. I mean, it's important to note that volume is caused by option expiration, not necessarily by people piling into the market. So it's you wouldn't want to misinterpret that. See it this week. And besides the Thursday's climax move, I think we had some good follow through on new highs and breadth and volume, total volume today too. I like that.
Yeah, it looks like an initiation.
Right, that's Thursday. That's glad you brought that up. But Thursday, I said I'm guessing that it's an initiation climax. Then Friday came along and it kind of squatted for a moment. But I still, it certainly has followed through today. Okay, we have a little bit of a negative divergence here on stocks above the 20 EMA, and we got new highs today, but this is lower. I don't know. This might tick up today, but because this hasn't updated yet, it won't update probably for another 30 minutes. These are the intermediate term indicators and negative divergences here. But the ITBM and ITVM are up, and they've crossed their signal line right along with the PMO. So that in itself is short-term bullish, and there's plenty of room on the upside for this to continue higher. So when we talk about possibility of a melt up, I'd say we're in a good position to have that take place. Okay, moving on to the 4, the dollar is pretty much congested in this area and more short-term in this area. I'm not looking for much to happen outside of that range for a while. Notice that we are, again, PMO is oversold. Gold didn't have much of a day. We're still really trying hard to break out of this channel or falling wedge. And I
Yeah,
person is
it's
interested,
taking its sweet time.
right, as usual.
Yeah. But everything else looks pretty well lined up. I mean, with the PMO rising, the discounts are getting higher.
We actually had 2 days in the last, well, in the last 3 weeks that actually was selling at a premium. This day, I think somebody with a big order got a bad execution, is what I think. But it's also could be a sign that it's starting to, people are starting to nibble. Crude oil, I still don't see much activity. I mean, I don't see moving out of this area really. And at the very extreme between here and here, that's, but it's just, there's really not much to drive oil up at this point. Even problems in the Middle East don't seem to affect the price anymore. Since the U.S. is now a net exporter, that's really good news.
Yes.
For those of us who suffered through the embargo in
Yes.
the 70s. Okay, and now, and bonds, I don't think that much is going to happen with this until the Fed changes their stance. But we still have a fairly decent range, which we could probably be into. There's a falling wedge, which we would expect that to resolve to the upside. But it's kind of neutral. The PMO's at 0 and actually moving pretty much sideways. Don't see much going on there.
Mm-mm.
Okay, the yield array. Let's look at that. Okay, the longer durations are separated from the shorter durations, and we're getting some flipping around in here, inversions, and that's not something that you really don't need to track too closely. The 10-year, where's that? The brown. Okay, the 10-year and the 2-year are well spread apart at this point. Did you want to take it back to get the?
Yes, let's go look at the sector scoreboard. Let's go ahead and grab this. All right, so here we have the sector scoreboard, and what we do is we take each of the sectors and then we determine what signal they're on as far as our intermediate term trend model and our long-term trend model, which also are the basis for the Silver Cross and Golden Cross indexes. So really good way to look at this all in just one spreadsheet. Right now, XLRE is the only one that is not holding a buy signal. It is on a neutral, and that is triggered when that 20-day EMA crosses below the 50-day EMA, but while both are above the 200-day EMA. So we go into that soft sell or neutral position, cash, fully hedged, that sort of thing. And then XLE, we're still looking at a sell signal as far as the long-term trend model. And I'm going to look at that sector just a little more closely, and we'll discuss what I'm seeing as far as that sell signal goes. So
Energy was the leading sector today in terms of.
yes, that's exactly why what I've decided I want to look at today, get to the right screen, is our sector summary. And I keep it on my dashboard for StockCharts just so I can always see what's going on with it. And of course, what I noted were, energy utilities and healthcare taking the lead here. And, sometimes I will get a little bit nervous when I see utilities and healthcare and staples, which actually, had a decent day, but not anything spectacular. But when they start to lead, I start to worry. But at this point, the rally that we're looking at is still being held up by, comm services. Technology still looks healthy. So I'm not really that worried about rotation right now as far as moving into those defensive sectors. Energy is an interesting one. And I know months ago on Market Watchers, we had a discussion about energy. And the question to all of us was whether it was going to lead going into the new year. And, most of us agreed that it was probably going to have a really good end of the year. And, when we click in here and look at energy, and we were talking about it, gosh, it had to have been back in May or June. It really hasn't done anything since then. So we really didn't get what we were expecting out of energy, but it does seem to be, we're starting to see some more interest there. And so I pulled up this energy chart right off of that dashboard just to get a feel for what's going on. And, the daily chart is interesting, but I think the weekly chart will be more interesting. And I think that I'm right. So here we go. So I'm looking at this right here as a symmetrical triangle that has formed on energy. And you could even drag this up here and make it longer. We're getting toward the apex of that that triangle. And actually, let me drag this out here so it'll be a little better. There we go. So these are typically continuation patterns, and they're supposed to continue in the direction that they were where price was going before. And we do see it dropped into this particular formation. But I'm not looking at it as we're going to see the breakdown to the downside. At this point, I see a really nice looking PMO on the weekly chart. I would expect to see this declining tops trend line broken. And actually, I think if I were to thin this out, it does look like it is starting to get broken this week. Of course, that bar is just today's bar because it's the first day of the week. So I don't want to read too much into that, but seeing the buy signal on the weekly chart, I think is really encouraging for energy right now. The other one I wanted to talk about was XLE, and I'm going to go right back to that sector summary. In fact, I'm going to show you how you can get to the bigger picture one. Just click on charts and tools, go over here to your sector summary, and then it's you can see it here. Many times I'll like to just click on that sector candle glance, so it'll give me kind of that overall picture of what's going on in all of the sectors. And as you can see, certainly the S&P has been having a great time here coming out of October. And so it's interesting to see what sectors were pretty much performing that same way in that particular time period. And you can see comm services was very strong, and technology really kept that rally going. But when you look at discretionary, it was pretty much sideways. We hadn't gotten much out of energy. Like I said, we keep waiting for that. But you've got healthcare still doing really well out of October, but utilities also struggling. But here's an interesting chart when I looked at utilities. And I found it interesting because, well, number one, we have a really beautiful breakout today on that 1.25% rally. But you can see that we were already starting to get some information with that PMO buy signal. We were in this congested area, this really tight trading channel, trading range. And now we've finally busted out of it, but we already had seen that PMO buy signal come in. And today, seeing that breakout come on the PMO moving into positive territory, I think is a positive. There is a negative here though, and that would be, and you can really only see it in the thumbnail, and that is we have rising bottoms right here on price, but over here we have a negative divergence with the bottoms on the OBV. So I'm not really thrilled with that look there, but it's hard to argue with a really nice breakout like this, and your upside potential certainly would be up to that $65 range. And if you really wanted to look more deeply into these sectors, one of the best ways to do that is you get the sector summary up here, and I'll click on energy, for example, and you can see what happened today. But we can also look at what happened, for example, in the last month. Where has the leadership been? Renewable energy, which is the leader today, was doing fairly well, but the ones that are really starting to make that move over the last month would be in that oil, equipment, and services. And I can click on that, and now I get all of the components of that particular industry group. And again, you can set it up. This is on a 1-month basis. We can do a scooter setup to see which ones are leading as far as the scooter. So I thought that was really interesting. I wanted to kind of drill down into those 2 sectors, but I know you had some sectors you wanted to look at, Dad, and then I know you had a couple of interesting charts on some individual stocks.
Right. And, we have the sector chart back too,
Mm-hmm.
that has a lot more stuff on it.
Yes.
Okay, let me find that. I've got a control panel up here in my way. Okay. First, let's go to the healthcare sector, and this is what I'm talking about. In our chart pack, we have a lot of indicators lined up for these sector, the 11 sectors, I should say. It was 9 for a very long time. And in this particular, healthcare is really one of the better looking sectors. Note that it's going to new highs here. The negative on this chart is the stocks in that sector that are above their 20 EMA. And as the price is going higher, this is trending downward. Still need to update today. So it may tick up, but I don't think it's going to tick up beyond this declining tops line. It's a minor issue, but it bears watching. Now, I try to pick out cardinal tops to measure performance of these various indicators. On the far right here, we have to keep moving it to the left as it's going higher. Okay, another sector that I found interesting is real estate. It was really quite a leader until mid-October, and it started down. And you'll notice how we had warning of that top being a problem as we had negative divergences on these stocks above 50 and stocks above 20 EMA. And technology stood out to me today. We've got some negative divergences on the 50 EMA and 20 EMA stocks. So, and it's moving higher. This could persist. It's not the end of the world, because we don't know that this is it measures the final tops. So we want to watch this. And also the silver cross is moving lower tops. Not the percentage is almost 80% on the silver cross. So that's still a good position for it to be in. And one of the stocks charts that stood out to me was Fitbit. They're being bought by Google, Alphabet. You can see here where the purchase was announced, and it's going to be in this range, pretty tight for the rest of its life before the merger. But what I did is I went to the weekly, and I thought, this is a perfect example of the enthusiasm of the individual when he thinks about getting fit. He gets thinking about it. He buys it. He gets the machine, and then enthusiasm wanes until it bases out at the very low level. The next one I wanted to look at is Apple. You can see it had a very good day, and it's really moving higher at a pace. And you got to go to the weekly. See, it's really, really vertical here. And it looks even worse on the monthly. And this is mostly where you detect these parabolic moves. It's moving straight up. That is not going to persist forever. There are a lot of people going to be unhappy somewhere up here, maybe, that they didn't get out, because they'll realize when it's back down here that it's just a matter of what do you call it? Enthusiasm, the excessive enthusiasm. What would they call it back? Greenspan call it excessive exuberance. But anyway, this particular move up here, it dropped 40%. So you probably can expect another drop of that nature. I'm not saying it's time to sell. I'm saying it's time to really watch this, because it's moving at an impossible pace. So, Erin, do you have something else?
No, we're getting ready to wrap, but I wanted to say that we did have one of our viewers sent me this chart, and had that parabolic move matched and the big question mark of when is this going to happen? When are we going to see that breakdown? And it's hard to say. And honestly, once we got that big breakdown in 2018, that 40% drop, you could see it was still hanging above the rising bottoms trend line. It didn't really break that, rising trend.
Parabolic here.
Yeah.
So it's used to doing that, though. As I did a chart and it showed how these pullbacks were pretty extreme, but it's still, I can remember when we were afraid it was going to go out of business.
I know. Look at that sideways, that basing pattern you've got on there from 95 on. I know there was so much debate during that period of time of whether you should buy it, whether you shouldn't, whether they're going to stay, what's happening. And yeah, and obviously if you had bought back then, I'm sure you're pretty happy if that's in your long-term buy and hold section of your portfolio.
So if you own it, I'm just saying, figure out what your stop is going to be. And I don't have a suggestion, because
right, it kind of depends on when you get in.
Parabolics are just difficult. That's it.
Right, and when they do break, it's really fast. So usually I just suggest trailing stops, and you can decide what percentage you're willing to take by setting one of those, and it'll travel up with you. And so you're protected, and it's protected me through a few parabolic moves, I must say.
Right. Now, if I owned it from down here, I guess I wouldn't be worried about it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we are at the end of today's show, and I do want to thank everybody for coming in, and feel free to complete that survey when you exit and let us know what you think, what you'd like to see. And again, a reminder that Decision Point does air on Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern, and I hope to see you back next Monday. Happy trading.